What an incredible honor to be here tonight to celebrate iMentor's 15-year anniversary. There's so much to celebrate. We took an idea and built a program model that gets results, not for hundreds of students, but for thousands of students consistently. We've served 13,000 young people over our first 15 years, and we will serve 20,000 students in the next 5 years alone. And I'm thrilled to announce tonight for the first time that in the fall of 2015, iMentor will be launching in Chicago. Thanks to the generous support of some of the folks in this room, Chicago will be the first of 3 cities iMentor expands to in the next 3 years. But I don't want to talk tonight about what we've accomplished over our first 15 years. What I want to talk about tonight is how we've come to understand the scope of the challenge we're up against. 8% college completion for low-income students, 80% for their more affluent peers. And 15 years in, above all else, what resonates is what you might refer to as the fallacy of the one thing. What we've learned is that there is no one thing you can do to improve these outcomes for our students. There's no one conversation, there's no one experience, there's no one skill once mastered that unlock the kind of opportunities that our young people need. There are no seminal moments. There's only years of steady support and years of being in it for the long game and years of staying with that young person no matter what, willing to do whatever it takes. That's also what makes iMentor such a special philanthropic investment. Think about it. For every $1,000 that creates a new Robertson mentor tonight, you're mobilizing another mentor like Virginia. Virginia is 74. She was on her 3rd round of chemo last year, and she took the hour-and-a-half subway ride every single month from her apartment on the Upper West Side to Canarsie, Brooklyn, to meet with her mentee. You're mobilizing a mentor like Kwam. Kwam's here with us tonight. After the first year of his 4-year commitment to DeMario, he had to move to Boston. And you get Kwam not even thinking twice about it, flying in every month for the next 3 years until DeMario graduates and gets into college. Think about that for a moment. Think about what that level of seriousness says to a young man like DeMario before Kwam ever opens his mouth. Think about you as a high school student and how that would allow you to raise your game. We are 15 years in, and we've learned with depth and detail why this college completion gap exists. Thinking of a young man named Miguel, who's a freshman in college at City Tech this year. He was born in Puerto Rico, and his aunt moved him here when he was 10 days old. And when his aunt passed away, her boyfriend raised him as his own. He's been an incredible father to Miguel all these years. Ben's Miguel's mentor. They met when Miguel was 15, a strong high school student without much of an idea for what he'd do after high school. First, Ben wanted to introduce him to the world of work, brought him to his own office. Miguel's first observation was, seems like all you do is sit around and BS all day. Ben had better luck when he took him to Rockstar Video Games, since Miguel aspires to be a video game programmer. When Miguel couldn't afford a tux for the prom, Ben got him a tux. Ben got him into a computer programming scholarship over the summer. When Miguel didn't want to go to college, Ben took him on tours of college campuses. When he didn't think he could pay for college, Ben found the schools he could afford and built out a spreadsheet that mapped exactly how he could pay for it. When Miguel's unique family history added complexity to an already complex financial aid system, Ben helped him navigate it. And Miguel's a freshman in college now, holding down 2 jobs on top of that. One of those jobs is the reason that he can't be here tonight. Miguel told me he keeps his schedule as full as possible so he doesn't have the chance of slipping into bad habits. He's one of the most unflailingly positive and driven young men you'll ever meet, and he's already talking about coming back as a mentor. What we've learned over our first 15 years is that our work is not done once a college aspiration solidifies, or once applications are submitted, or once our young people show up on campus at the fall. There are years of steady support and years of doing whatever it takes that stand between a promising high school student like Miguel and the college graduate he deserves to be. We're 15 years in, and we've begun to understand what happens when the tidy poetry of a college aspiration turns into the street fight that is required to hold on to that dream. Thinking of a young woman I met 2 years ago in June, the month she was set to graduate from high school. After a dispute with her parents, this young woman was kicked out of her house. She didn't have her belongings. She didn't have a place to stay. She didn't have any way to pay for the college she was set to attend in the fall. She had 2 weeks in a shelter called the Covenant House until she had to make other arrangements. After the first night in the Covenant House, she called her mentor, Katie, who came and took her out to dinner. After that dinner, Katie and this young woman called her favorite teacher, Ms. Arnold, and together, the three of them began to work on a plan. Ms. Arnold found somebody who was willing to give this young woman a bedroom for the summer in exchange for babysitting. Step one was finding a place to stay. Step two was they began to stalk a man named Justin Morgan, Assistant Director of Student Financial Services at the SUNY school where this young woman was set to enroll. At this point, it's just weeks before college is set to start, and if this young woman's going to go, administrative exceptions are going to need to be made. And they called Justin Morgan every day for the next 14 days. They filed and refiled paperwork. But maybe most importantly, Katie and Miss Arnold, they didn't do anything for this young woman. They coached her through it. They coached her on how to advocate for herself, on how to engage Justin Morgan as a partner and not an administrator, and why it was so important for her to articulate the unique urgency around her need to enroll in the fall. And it worked. Exceptions were made. And now this young woman's challenges did not stop there, not by a long shot, but neither has her relationship with her mentor. She made it through her freshman year and stayed on campus over the summer, got a job in the veterinary school. And she's a college sophomore now. Great group of friends, 2.8 GPA, and the independence to make her future her own. 15 years in, and we can tell you with absolute certainty that there is no one thing you can do to change these outcomes for our students. There are no quick fixes or easy answers. There's only 100 things at 100 different times all along a young person's trajectory, just like it was for you and just like it was for me, only with exceptionally less room for error. There is no one thing. But the most important thing that we've learned is that if you're betting on what works, you bet on people. You bet on relationships, and you bet on supports that are in it for the long game. You bet on Virginia going to Canarsie no matter how bad she feels, and Quam flying in from Boston every month, and Ben's meticulous spreadsheets that show how the finances work, and Katie showing up that night at the Covenant House. If you care about more young people being able to leverage their education for a shot at a better life, then you bet on your thousands of neighbors every single year who are willing to step up and do whatever it takes to get them there. And when we do this, this is not an act of charity. This is how we move forward. If you care about how this next generation of leaders is going to move this country forward, then you bet on the young people to whom little was given and everything was earned. You bet on the strivers. You bet on the young people with full-time jobs and full-time school who are tired and stressed and worry about whether or not they're going to be able to pull it off, but who get up and keep going anyway, every single day. You bet on the young people that can't afford a semester, drop out, save up, and go back. The strivers. You bet on Miguel, and you bet on Buki, and you bet on Ishmael out there, $96 a day in a full class load, all on his own in Columbus, Ohio, one semester away from Ohio State. You bet on these young people, and you give them the support they need to succeed, and they will take us forward. The Empire State Building is lit orange tonight in honor of iMentor. Thank you. That means we've got thousands of young people and thousands of mentors in almost every single neighborhood in this city looking out of apartment windows at this special recognition of their efforts. That skyline and this city has always served as a beacon for the strivers. And tonight, that beacon is recognizing what makes this city the greatest city on earth, which is our diversity and our density, and what we choose to do with the combination of those two things. With your support, we're leveraging our diversity and our density to bet on these young people, to provide them with the supports they need to succeed so they can take us forward. Thank you. Nothing in this room would be possible, nothing we've accomplished over our first 15 years would be possible without the people in this room. You were there at the beginning with your time and your insight and your investment, and you stuck with us every step of the way. And for that, we are deeply grateful. Thank you to John Griffin and the iMentor board for your vision, for Matt and Caroline and Rich for getting this idea off the ground in the early days, for the 100+ iMentor staff members who work so incredibly hard every single day to make sure this beautiful idea translates into the most powerful experience possible for our young people. Thank you to the students who inspire us, with a special shout out to my mentee, Mateo, and all the mentors who are willing to do whatever it takes to get them there. Thank you tonight especially to Julian Robertson. I'm humbled and grateful to have the honor of putting a spotlight on your generosity and of creating thousands of new mentoring relationships in your honor. And right now it's time to find out exactly how many Robertson mentors we created tonight. Please join me in welcoming Quentin and Ishmael to the stage